Bates here with your Real America's Voice news break. Thanks so much for being along for the ride. President Trump is aboard Air Force One right now and making the trip across the Atlantic Ocean for tomorrow's funeral for Pope Francis. Before leaving, the commander-in-chief described the Pope as a good man who loved the world, saying that he met the pontiff twice. Mr. Trump also laying out what's happening behind the scenes and his goals for this short visit to the Vatican.
Right now, what do you hope? They're meeting with Putin right now as we speak, and we have a lot of things going on, and I think in the end we're going to end up with a lot of good deals, including tariff deals and trade deals. We're going to make our country rich, but we're going to try and get out of war so that we can save 5,000 people a week, and that's what my aim is. I want to save 5,000 young men. They happen to be mostly Ukrainian, Russian, 5,000 young Ukrainian and Russian men, and that's a big honor if I could do it. I think we're pretty close.
President Trump will be among many world leaders flocking to the Vatican to pay their respects to Pope Francis. Before leaving the White House, he said that he expects to meet with some of them despite his brief time in Rome. And when asked about whether he'll meet with Volodymyr Zelensky, Mr. Trump simply replying, possibly. Thursday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio put into perspective the role his boss is playing on the international stage.
Of all the leaders in the world today, no leader is working harder to prevent wars or end them than President Trump is right now. That's why we're talking to Iran. That's why we're engaged with Ukraine and Russia. It's the desire to prevent these wars from breaking out and to end the ones that exist already. And again, I just think it's tremendous for our country to be led by a president who desires to bring peace and establish peace and protect peace.
Meantime, the man accused of murdering United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson has a date with the judge today, just one day after the federal government officially told a federal court it plans to seek the death penalty against the accused killer. The 26-year-old will be in federal court for an arraignment where he is expected to plead not guilty. He's already pleaded not guilty in a separate state case. Prosecutors argue the 26-year-old, quote, presents a future danger because he expressed an intent to target an entire industry and rally political and social opposition to that industry by engaging in an act of lethal violence. That's why they're asking that he be put to death if convicted. And if convicted on the murder charges, a federal jury would determine the death penalty phase of the case in a separate part of the trial. Sanctuary cities across the country are celebrating a bit of a victory after a federal judge in California ruled to ban the Trump administration from denying or putting conditions on federal funds for those cities. The administration in cities like San Francisco, Chicago, and Denver have been at odds because the municipalities limit cooperation with federal immigration efforts. The case in question was brought by the city of San Francisco. Thursday's injunction continued a trend of federal judges striking down Trump presidential orders. The EO in this case directs the Justice Department and the Department of Homeland Security to withhold federal funds from sanctuary jurisdictions. Another order says that all federal agencies should ensure that payments to state and local governments not, quote, abet so-called sanctuary policies that seek to shield illegal aliens from deportation. In the meantime, the Trump administration is asking the U.S. Supreme Court to uphold the president's executive order banning transgender people from serving in the military. The attempted ban was blocked by a federal judge who said the executive order likely violates the Constitution's Fifth Amendment right to equal protection under the law. That's a quick check of your headlines. Tax day may have passed, but for millions of Americans, the real trouble is just beginning. If you happen to miss the April 15th deadline, or if you still owe back taxes, the IRS is really ramping up its enforcement. Every day you wait only makes things worse. With over 5,000 new tax liens filed daily and tools like property seizures, bank levies, and wage garnishments, the IRS is applying pressure at levels we haven't seen in years. Increased administrative scrutiny also means that collections are moving fast. But here's the good news. There's still time for Tax Network USA to help. Self-employed or a business owner? Well, even if your books are a mess, they've got it covered for you. Tax Network USA specializes in cleaning up financial chaos and getting you back on track fast. Even after the deadline, it's not too late to regain control. Your consultation is completely free, and acting now could stop penalties, threatening letters, and surprise levies before they escalate.
we go, kicking off another brand new hour of the Steve Gruber Show. Here's a warning for you, though. Steve Gruber Show often results in extended periods of American pride, American optimism, and uncontrollable enthusiasm about the future of this country. Good to have you here, kicking off the live broadcast day on Real America's Voice, MTN, and reaching a growing global audience. Glad to have you on board. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, 60,000 Americans could find themselves without a place to live, according to those criticizing a cut in government assistance to those folks. President Trump is canceling a controversial offshore project in Maine. We'll tell you about that coming up as he gets involved with saving our country. And number three, we're going to start here today. Number three, we're going to start here because this is an important prospect. This is simply where I have to start. The outrageous behavior of far too many judges in America. No one is above the law. That was the Democrat Party's favorite slogan during the unprecedented lawfare against Donald Trump the last several years. And it was repeated over and over again by the media stool pigeons ad nauseum. But the left-wing nuts, they're wringing their hands over the arrest of two prominent judges who are being accused of completely flouting the law while being paid to be the protectors of the law. That's right. On Friday, Judge Hannah Dugan, who has been serving on the Wisconsin Circuit Court since 2016, was arrested by the FBI for openly helping someone dodge immigration authorities at the courthouse. In fact, in her courtroom, the People's Courtroom, specifically federal agents say she helped an illegal alien, Eduardo Flores Ruiz, who apparently has a record of violent offenses, avoid getting picked up by ICE. They say she led him and his lawyer through a private area of the courthouse, basically giving him a way to slip through the line past agents. ICE caught him later, but it took a foot chase outside the courthouse. Not good for public safety, but now Dugan's facing federal charges for obstruction and for hiding someone to prevent their arrest. She's denying the whole thing, of course. Says she plans to fight the charges. Her lawyer is also arguing that this really wasn't about public safety, that the situation was just handled badly. Well, Democrat leaders and so-called advocacy groups are calling it politically motivated and warning it could set a dangerous precedent for how judges are treated when they make tough calls. As if helping an illegal alien evade arrest is a tough call that other judges need to make. It isn't, and it's not. Or the Democrat mayor of Milwaukee. Trump's critics are focusing on how the arrest was made. They don't have a good answer for the actual crimes involved here. They're just upset about how the arrest went down. Listen to this.
What happened here was just showboating. They're just trying to have this show of force, and in the process of doing this in a courthouse where people need to go for court proceedings, they're scaring people away from participating in the process. So if they are witness to a crime or something of the sort, they're not going to go and participate, and that makes our community less safe.
So the issue is with how the arrest happened, not necessarily that there was an investigation.
Again, I don't know all the things that happened there, but I'm saying that the way that they went about this, in this ham-handed, haphazard way that this administration has been doing since day one, it's driving people away, or has potential to drive people away from participating in court proceedings, which makes our community less safe. I want people to go to court. I want people to have their day in court. I want people to hold folks accountable in our judicial system, but the actions of this administration are driving people away from doing that, and that's not good for public safety in Milwaukee.
Do you believe this man should be deported?
I'm sorry?
Do you believe this?
Complete garbage. Trump derangement syndrome at its finest. Mayor Johnson says he doesn't have anything to say about the alleged crimes that Judge Dugan was arrested for. Doesn't even know about them. Doesn't have any information about the illegal alien she helped elude law enforcement. Just has a lot to say about the way the Trump administration gets the job done. And they did get the job done. CNN's Zelly Honig has a simpler way to look at it. Of course, here it is.
Looking at the complaint, let's strip the politics out of it. This is a crime. If they can prove what happened here, it is a crime. This judge, let's strip the Trump of it all out. Let's strip the immigration of it all out. Let's say law enforcement shows up at a building with an arrest warrant. They're looking for person A. Person B then says, hey, there's a secret escape door out back. I'm going to show you the way, and then ushers that person out the back door. That is textbook obstruction.
That is textbook obstruction. Here's the secret way out the door. Yes, it is. See, when you get rid of the anti-Trump bias, it just makes sense. But unfortunately, Democrats and now judicial district courts across the country act incapable of acting in an unbiased fashion. They seem completely incapable of pulling that off. Here's what Attorney General Pam Bondi had to say about that. Listen.
I think some of these judges think they are beyond and above the law, and they are not. And we're sending a very strong message today. If you are harboring a fugitive, we don't care who you are. If you are helping hide one, if you are giving a TDA member guns, anyone who is illegally in this country, we will come after you and we will prosecute you. We will find you.
If I could just finish off with this idea, very significant development that you're arresting judges now. Now, it could be that the judges have engaged in terribly bad behavior and deserve to be arrested. But you know what critics will say? They'll say, "Oh, this is a government that is expanding the powers of the Article 1 of the Constitution. Now they're arresting judges." How do you respond to that?
No one is above the law, John. No one is above the law in this country. And if you are destroying evidence, if you are obstructing justice, when you have victims sitting in a courtroom of domestic violence and you're escorting a criminal defendant out a back door, it will not be tolerated, and it is a crime.
Yeah. The other judge that Pam Bondi is referencing there is Judge Joel Cano, the now former New Mexico magistrate judge. Joel Cano and his wife Nancy both arrested last week after a federal investigation linked them to a man believed to be part of the violent Venezuelan gang, Tren de Aragua. According to investigators, the Canos let this guy, 23-year-old Christian Ortega Lopez, an illegal alien, an undocumented immigrant, if you like that better, he was staying in their guest house at their Las Cruces home. He apparently crossed into the U.S. illegally in late 23, got arrested earlier this year for having firearms while here illegally, which is also a federal crime. Federal agents say there's a lot of evidence that tying Ortega Lopez to the gang, like tattoos, clothing, stuff he posted on social media as well. The Canos not only housed him, but reported that he had him working, doing small jobs around the property, even in Christmas pictures with the family. Even more seriously, Joel Cano allegedly destroyed Ortega Lopez's phone, provided him with an assault rifle, took him to the shooting range. And Nancy, she's accused of hiding another one and trying to wipe his Facebook account. So now they're both facing charges of tampering with evidence and conspiracy. Joel had already resigned from his position as a judge in March, and since then, the New Mexico Supreme Court has permanently banned him from ever holding a judicial role in the state again. So, you've got the left criticizing the arrest of these judges. Judges that are clearly flouting the law, suggesting they are above the law. And this judge here, providing an AR-15 to an illegal alien with ties to Tren de Aragua, having a firearm when you're in the country is not, and not being a citizen is a federal crime. And then they tried to wipe the phones and hide the social media stuff, all of it. But the left would have you believe that somehow this is the Trump administration out of bounds. Please. It's the same standard you'd be held to, or I'd be held to. We'll take a break. We'll talk more about it because we haven't gotten to the federal district court judges who are completely out of control in this country. Nice to see you on a Monday. Hope you had a great weekend. I did. We'll be right back. You know, when judges, people we count on to uphold the law fairly, break that very law, it's hitting a lot harder than what an ordinary person does, in my opinion. If you're in the black robe, you have a position that's much more sensitive when it comes to breaking law, in my opinion. Take Judge Dugan, for example. She's accused of helping an illegal avoid ICE agents. And then there's Judge Cano and his wife, who apparently gave shelter to someone tied to the Tren de Aragua gang, gave them guns that the left thinks nobody should have ever, by the way, AR-15s. Stuff like this doesn't just break laws, it chips away at the public trust of the entire judicial system. It makes people question whether the rules are really applied equally, or if the whole thing is just rigged. Trust in the system is already fragile. When the people who are supposed to protect that trust turn around and betray us, the damage is deep. It's all the way to the foundation. That's not the only damage being done to trust in the system, of course. This MSNBC guest, a Milwaukee Democrat, went ahead and said the quiet part out loud. Not only are we seeing judges break the law, we're seeing district court judges twist the law to completely dismantle the function of the executive branch. Listen to the complete lack of self-awareness right here.
This was put on to be a show. This is really to show intimidation of judges across the entire country because we know that Republicans in Congress have not been standing up to these terrible policies. It's been our judiciary. It's been our justice system. And so now they're under attack, and it's important now than ever that we're not only protecting due process, but talking about the need to protect our democracy. Our democracy is built on three different branches of government: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. And when one of those branches are falling apart, that means our democracy is falling apart as well. So we have to stand up and really talk about this and bring these issues to light.
Mm-hmm. He admits there are three branches of government, but then he calls on the judicial branch to completely negate the powers afforded to the President of the United States, a position actually elected by the people, 77.5 million of us, unlike that of district court judges who are only political appointees. Judges have increasingly stood in the way of the Trump administration's efforts to deport criminals here in the U.S. illegally. The latest being Judge Stephanie Gallagher, who has ordered the Trump administration to facilitate the return of a Venezuelan man who was deported to El Salvador, saying his deportation violates a class action lawsuit that the Biden administration settled years ago. We've got serious issues when Biden can grant temporary protected status to illegal aliens by executive order, but President Trump cannot revoke that temporary protected status to the same illegal aliens by a like executive order. Do you see the problem here? Joe Biden can issue the executive order, boom, they can stay. Trump says, no, they can't. They say, oh, you can't do that. It's unconstitutional. Here's Senator Tom Cotton's take on judicial interference. Listen.
But I guess a lot of these liberal judges, they love the limelight. They get tired of presiding over contract disputes or minor drug cases. So rather, they want to insert themselves into the conduct of foreign policy or stopping administrative action that applies not just in their own states, but in the entire country. The Supreme Court needs to take steps to rein in these rogue federal judges that want to be policymakers as opposed to neutral jurists.
Yeah. Well, former House Speaker Newt Gingrich says we don't have to wait for the Supreme Court to act. There's talk about Congress reining in the powers of district court judges. What do you think of this? Listen.
There's a great question from Incognito, who asks why Congress isn't doing more to deal with these district judges who seem so out of control. Well, I can talk about that because I actually testified at a Judiciary Committee hearing in the House just about a week ago, talking about the need to restrict district courts to local district decisions and not allow district court judges to make nationwide decisions that affect everybody as though they were an alternative president. I'm delighted to report that Congressman Darrell Issa actually passed a bill which would block district courts from having nationwide injunctions and instead limit them to their own district. It went through the House. Senator Grassley has a similar bill in the Senate. I suspect it'll pass, and I suspect that President Trump will sign it. So Congress is moving to put district judges back in their district and not allow them to pretend that they're alternative presidents.
The way it should be. A district judge is basically a local federal judge. Now, whether it's Congress or the Supreme Court, someone has to stop these judges from completely neutralizing the agenda of a president who was voted in by the American people precisely for the agenda that they ran on. Another case in point, U.S. District Court Judge Landia McCafferty has blocked Trump's education department from cutting funding to schools that practice DEI. McCafferty says the department's directives against DEI are unconstitutionally vague. But how is it constitutional for our dollars to go toward a university's attempts to treat students differently based on race? The Supreme Court already ruled 2 years ago that universities cannot use race as part of college admissions. Why should it be part of education? And even more so, why should I be on the hook to pay for it? Am I supposed to pay Michigan State to treat my daughter differently if she were a student there because she wasn't born black or Hispanic? I don't think so. The framers of our great Constitution never intended for the judicial branch to dictate policy. In the Federalist Papers, Alexander Hamilton once referred to the courts as, quote, the least dangerous branch because its power over the executive and legislative branches was intended to be much more minimal than we're seeing today. These arrests of judges Hannah Dugan and Joel Cano are a good step toward holding these judges accountable, but we're up against many more who might not deserve a spot behind bars, but who are breaking their oath to the Constitution in favor of partisan rulings, and it has to stop. This is why many of us are calling on Congress to do its damn job, impeach those on the bench that are defecating, frankly, on the Constitution while claiming to occupy the moral high ground. I, for one, have had enough. How about you? By the way, follow me on X today. I'd appreciate that. We're trying to find 25 new followers today. Are you one of them? Maybe. If you are, go and answer the question of the poll. I put it up late last night. We've had 25,000 looks, 7,000 votes. Do you approve of President Trump on the job he is doing 100 days into office? Follow me on X. Cast a vote this morning. I'm going to tell you some of those results after the break. Do you approve of Donald Trump in office? 100 days in. Tomorrow is 100 days. What do you think of it? Follow me on X. It is The Steve Gruber Show. Here we go back into it. Let's see here. We've got about 7,000 votes in the door so far. We've got another 8 hours left on the clock here, so I'd like to get a few more votes in. So, again, we're looking for 25 new followers on X this hour. Could be. If you do that, please vote. It's pinned at the top of the page. Do you approve of President Trump on the job he's doing 100 days into office? Out of 7,000 votes, 83.9% say yes, 12% say no. 1.1% are not sure, and 3% say it's a stupid question. What say you? Donald Trump coming to Macomb County, Michigan tomorrow. I'll be there for you. I'll be covering that event for Real America's Voice and for MTN and all the other networks we work with and for. He's coming to Michigan. Donald Trump has always, in my conversations with him, he's always made clear he considers Michigan to be ground zero. He considered it to be ground zero in his election efforts in 2016. He won here by 10,000 votes, just over. He won here by just over 80,000 votes in 2024. 2020, who knows what happened in Michigan. Can't be quite clear on that, but he's always considered Michigan to be ground zero, so he's coming here to mark 100 days of his time in office, and we welcome him here, and we will be giving you complete information and coverage when it comes around. Your health is your most valuable asset. At the Wellness Company, they're here to protect it. From daily essential supplements to specialized immune boost formulas, the doctor-developed products are designed to help you feel your very best naturally. It's not just about supplements, though. As a member, you'll have access 24/7, virtual care, exclusive discounts, personalized wellness plans tailored to fit your needs, not my needs, your needs. Custom. Just go to twc.health/Gruber. Explore the wide range of wellness solutions that twc.health/Gruber, and use the promo code Gruber to save 10%. Of course, you know about the great emergency kits they have. Those are there as well. The Wellness Company, healthcare that works for you. Again, twc.health/Gruber. Use that promo code Gruber. You'll save 10%. After the break, we're going to talk about where we are in the markets. They look like they're going to be flat. A lot of the turbulence has leveled out over the last week. But where are we going forward? Terry Sawchuk will break it down for us straight ahead. make sure you go participate in the poll here today on X at the Steve Gruber Show on X. Make sure you participate. We're looking for 25 new followers today. We've got about 7,000 votes so far. Do you approve of President Trump? The job he is doing 100 days into office. And I ask you that. He'll be in Macomb County, Michigan tomorrow. Obviously, one of the big drivers for his election in November of last year was clearly the economy. The economy drove him to victory in large part, that and immigration, but it's the economy that is on a lot of people's minds because of the tariffs and everything else. Terry Sawchuk, the founder of Sawchuk Wealth, joining me now. Terry, nice to see you today.
Good morning, Steve. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Looking at one of the things that there's certain measurements that I make. I'm not a professional like you are, but I look at different things, like the price of gas. Today, it's lower than it was a week ago. It's about 50 cents or more lower than it was a year ago. So the gas keeps getting cheaper. The price of oil hovering between about $61, $65 a barrel, which is good news for the consumer overall. And that's just one measurement of the economy. I also look at the futures of the market today. It has leveled out some after some really rough water here a couple of weeks ago. What are you seeing as we start a new week?
Yeah, I think the market has found a little bit of kind of a level point, if you will. I would caution you, though, we're somewhere between 4 and 5% below the 200-day moving average, and that acts as a magnet. So we'll see once the market gets up to that level, whether it can hold and break through, or whether it acts as resistance and pushes it back down. There's a lot of there's just a lot of data coming out every day. We're making some progress on trade agreements, although I haven't seen anything in writing yet. There's just China keeps saying we're not talking to Trump, and Trump keeps saying we're talking to China. So not sure how that's going to play out, but I suspect they are probably having conversations.
I read an article by Gordon G. Chang, who I think is pretty well versed on China. Just came out from the Gatestone Institute yesterday, I think. He thinks that China is folding because he pointed out that China is not implementing its tariffs across the board. In fact, there are a whole host of things that are not being included in China's tariffs for goods inbound to their country. He says it's a sign that Xi knows he can't go toe-to-toe with the American economy. It's just a tea leaf, one of many. What do you make of that?
I think Gordon Chang's pretty smart. I don't know enough to tell you whether I think that's true. What I can tell you is that I think China's got a problem because it's not so much that they need to sell the stuff to make money, not that they don't want to make money. The problem is they need to keep the manufacturing going because they need to keep their workers employed. So if you take the United States, the biggest consumer in the world by far, and you remove them from the equation, who are they going to sell their stuff to? I mean, there's just no other single economy in the world that's even close. You could argue they could sell into Europe and other places, and that's possibly true, but I don't think they can make up the volume anywhere near it. So the problem for Xi is that he needs to make sure that those manufacturing plants stay open, because if you get a whole bunch of people that don't have jobs in China anymore, that's a problem for him. And that's an existential threat. That's not an economic threat.
Yeah, that's a problem for him. All right, so there's been a stabilizing of stocks, I suppose. But you pointed out that there's a lagging economic data showing pretty good slowdown in economic activity. That's one indicator. You think we could be retesting lows in the stock market still to come? I mean, that's still possible. We could see another drop in the market. It's stabilized pretty well. I think the overall drop was between 7 and 10 points, maybe a little bit more in some places, but it's leveled out there. And people are buying. I was talking to people over the weekend. They're like, I'm buying. I was talking to people that they're fired up. They're buying right now, and they think it's a good time. Is it a time to buy?
I think it's too early yet. Now, the reality, Steve, is I think we end up in the same place, at least I think, which is the Fed's probably going to have to cut rates. I mean, your point about oil earlier is an important one, right? Because the oil goes into everything. It's not just oil that goes into your car for gas, but virtually everything that we make, right? So that's a huge input cost that's going down. Over time, the government jobs that we're losing are probably going to have an impact. And so I think the Fed, frankly, is going to have to come to the table, and they're going to have to cut. And I would not be surprised if we see the Fed at least talk about, if not actually cut in June. And that's when you want to buy with both hands. Between now and then, I'd be cautious because I think we could get in. I'm not saying we'll get all the way down to retest the lows, but I definitely think it's possible.
So when the Fed cuts, that's the time to jump in. If you got some extra money sitting there, you got some money sitting in the money market, it's protected whatever you have for cash, even if it's a little bit, a good time to buy. That's what you're suggesting.
I think that's the all clear sign potentially. You just never know for sure. But my guess is that the way that so some of the leading indicators are coming in, the tariffs are going to start to show, an impact on some of the things that are important that the economists measure, and they're going to slow down. And so you take that coupled with the fact that inflation has really come down a bit. And I think the Fed, if you look at another example is the 10-year Treasury, it's at 4.26 right now, right? So that's below the federal funds rate. So it just makes no sense for Powell to be so stubborn about this, other than I just think that, he doesn't really want to do anything that's going to support Trump.
Yeah, he is a bit political. I hadn't glanced at gold yet. Gold's down almost $50 in early trading today. So, gold surged almost $3,500, and there was concern by some people that I spoke with that the dollar could really be tested at that point as whether or not it could survive if it went to like 4,000. That didn't happen, right?
No, that's silliness. That's just the dollar's not going anywhere. Like the amount of pain.
And I'm glad you said that because I've had people say, if it goes to 4,000, the dollar's in real trouble. And I'm glad that you bring sanity to the conversation. Go on.
Yeah, it's the rest of the world, the pain that they would suffer trying to get out from the dollar-denominated debt they have, it just doesn't make any sense. So it's not to say that over a longer period of time, we might not see some level of de-dollarization, but this idea that it's going to, there's a lot of talk about central banks buying gold, and I think there is some truth to that. But it is a crowded trade right now, and when everybody gets on one side of the boat, Steve, you know what usually happens.
Yeah, the boat goes. It gets a little choppy in there, to say the least. All right, so you oftentimes hold these seminars to talk to them about what they're doing, to get a second opinion, to figure out what's happening. You've got another one coming up. America First, but the last wealth management system. Tell me about this.
Well, we're just, our focus is always going to be on reducing costs. We have a competitive advantage, I think, over, a number of other people who are in our business because our costs tend to be lower. And the other thing that we do exceptionally well is we manage risk, and we use mathematical, not just formulas, but tools to minimize drawdown risk. So, like, for example, in this last drawdown, by the way, the NASDAQ got down close to 20% at the bottom. Okay, so it was a big drop. In fact, at the very bottom of the drop, we lost all of the gains that were made in 2024 in both the NASDAQ and the S&P. Now, not we didn't. When I say that, I mean our clients did not. We hardly lost any money at all during that stretch because of the way that we manage risk. And I'm looking as an opportunity. I think once the Fed does cut rates, and I think they're going to, that's going to be an opportunity to shift back into a risk-on position.
You can find out, and by the way, the NASDAQ, I think, is now even for April, which is good news. Find out more. You can click that QR code that's on your screen, anybody who's got the streaming there. You can go to sawchuckwealth.com/Gruber and find out more. And get Terry's advice one-on-one in a personal way. Terry, greatly appreciate seeing you as always. Thank you for the sanity.
Steve, good to see you, buddy. Take care.
There you have it. It's the Steve Gruber Show. Be right back. Welcome back to the program. Time for something completely different. Time for something completely different. Take a deep cleansing breath. We're going to do something completely different than we've done in a long time. Joining me now is Travis Chambers. He's the founder of Outpost X. It's a place for you to go relax, spend time, and completely disconnect if you're so inclined. Travis, welcome to the program.
Oh, happy to be here. Thanks, Steve.
Now, when it comes to the world of short-term rentals, it's been around for a number of years. We've all been there. We've all used the different services, but you have totally different things. This is like going to the Star Wars bar. I mean, I'm sitting here in your website. I've been looking at it all morning, and it's like, these Cave 1, Cave 2, Cave 3, these destinations are completely different than anything I've ever seen before. I believe you build studio sets and television sets and so forth. And you said, why do I keep tearing them down? I want to keep some of the stuff and let people enjoy them. That's kind of the foundation where this all began, isn't it?
Yeah, it just dawned on me one day. I thought, man, I would really like to stay here. And I went to theme parks. I'm like, why can't I stay here overnight? So that's why we built it.
Right. So this first one, let's talk about the first one. It is, it's where and what can you just, how would you describe it? We're going to show the people some video here, but how would you describe it?
It's an otherworldly apocalyptic sanctuary. So our story is that this planet's been destroyed and these people are rebuilding this place. And so you get to kind of leave the world you know behind and kind of enter this whole new world. So we're in this niche called unique stays, and you've probably seen, these crazy Airbnbs that people are doing. So we come from film, so we thought, let's pull the lever on this and let's go as extreme and as unique as we can. And so when you get there, you're completely immersed into the story. There's wardrobe, there's art cars you can drive around, and there's 240 acres, and you kind of have it all to yourself.
Land speeders is what they are, Land speeders as close as you can actually come. I want an actual land speeder someday. I had a hovercraft many years ago. They were not what a land speeder should be. But so you've created this, I don't know, in a way, when I looked at it, it looked like kind of a Burning Man experience in a way, because you've got this theme. Am I on the right track here?
Yeah, there's a mix of all sorts of influences. And so we basically created a story, our own story, and then it was inspired by all these sci-fi desert movies that we all have watched and we all love. And there's some Burning Man influences too. What's funny is when it was almost done, I started getting comments of people saying, you're building a Burning Man hotel. Well, I didn't know anything about Burning Man. And so I actually went, and I found that there's 60,000 people out there who are building stuff like this too, obviously in their own way. But, as I reflect on why this thing is working, why is it sold out? Why are we sold out 4 months in advance? And I asked ChatGPT that question. I'm like, why is this working? What would you call this? It's like a fan base. And ChatGPT called it the mythic subcultures. And then it told me that the top 10 mythic subcultures, Vikings, cowboys, pirates, these are just stories of people who had a lot of freedom and maybe also a little bit of danger in history that we really admire. And I think that's why we go watch these blockbusters. And so now as a company, we've realized we're basically making movie hotels. So we're making our own blockbusters. And when you make a blockbuster, you want to make something that people are already interested in. So
sure.
So we got a jungle project down in Puerto Rico that's halfway done. And then after that, we'll be doing some Moroccan tents with camels and a Viking village next.
Yeah, I thought the Puerto Rico effort fascinating, to say the least. The way that you incorporate their tree houses, right? And the way you incorporate them into this rainforest is by not disturbing the rainforest itself. I thought that was fascinating. You don't leave a footprint. Therefore you become, you become part of the rainforest by not stepping on it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's really what we're trying to do. Is we're trying to do low footprint and make the landscape the feature. And luxury hotels compete on luxury, convenience, and service. So we're kind of throwing that all out the window, and we're competing on story and viral experiences and topography. So we always try to pick landscapes where the landscape is the hero in the story, because the landscape tells you where you are. And if the landscape tells a story,
but I don't want to give people the wrong impression here, Travis. I mean, there's still upscale rooms. You've got saunas, you've got first class showers, you've got first class, kitchens and so forth. Yes, you throw kind of that out the window, and whether you're in the desert Southwest of the United States or in Puerto Rico or in Morocco in the future, it's still a very classy experience. You get to immerse yourself into this, I guess, this fantasy at Outpost X, but it's still upscale, right?
Yeah, that's a great way to explain it. I'd say it's like the highest end glamping that you could have. So we try to set expectations that we're not high end luxury, and we kind of throw people in the deep end. We're off grid, and we prioritize adventure over everything being perfect and convenience. And it's funny. Sometimes we'll get reviews, and 1 in 10 people don't really get it. And we've had people that are like, I showed up and there was no one there to greet me, and no one there to tell me what to do or where to go. And we're like, you're welcome.
That's the point. You're welcome. Yeah. If you want to be off grid, if you want to unplug, that's kind of the way that works. All right. So here's what I'm going to tell you, folks. Here's what you need to do. It's a fascinating website. Go Google. It's outpost-x.com. If you just Google Outpost X or whatever your search engine is, you'll find it. You'll find what's going on in Utah. You'll find what's going on in Puerto Rico. Morocco I've not seen online yet, but maybe it's going to be there shortly. Travis, I tip my hat to you. This is an experience, not just going for a vacation, it's going for an experience, and I thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Greatly appreciate it. Travis Chambers, everybody, the founder of Outpost X, a mythic subculture adventure. This ain't your mom and dad's Airbnb, I can tell you that. Again, go check it out. It's Outpost X. You're going to like what you find. I think it's fascinating. Zen domes and what looks to me like, it's almost like Star Wars. They've got these land speeder. This is the one in the desert Southwest. In Puerto Rico, totally different again. Outpost X, check that out. Something, like I said, totally different and fun. Right here on The Steve Gruber Show. All right, so, I keep looking at this garbage polling. I do. Wondering how long are we going to allow this? ABC News, nobody approves of Elon Musk. His approval's in the 30s. I don't believe that. Donald Trump's approval rating is 41%. Wrong again. All these Trump voters have buyer's remorse. Still more lies. Look, garbage polls are out there. You got to deal with it. Rasmussen out today with a poll that shows 56% of Americans approve of the job Donald Trump is doing on the border, on the economy across the board. There it is, Rasmussen. Mark Mitchell at Rasmussen. Mark will be on this week talking about the new numbers. I don't trust ABC or Reuters or Ipsos or any of them. I don't. And Rasmussen was the one poll that showed Donald Trump leading by 2 or 3 points all the way to Election Day. And guess who was right and everybody else was wrong? That's right, Mark Mitchell and Rasmussen, and there you have it. This part of the program is brought to you by my good friends at Hillsdale College. Do you agree or disagree with this statement? Capitalism has produced the greatest increase in human wealth and living standards. Good question. Ask 10 people to define it, and you'll get 10 different answers. But do you really know what capitalism means? Hillsdale College offering more than 40 free courses. I mean, this is an awesome opportunity. It really is. They put it out there for free. People like Larry Arnn, the president of that university, free. Subjects like the Constitution, the Roman Republic, Genesis, all of it. Understanding capitalism. Just 7 short lectures is new. You'll learn about profit and loss, private property, the rule of law, and why capitalism at its core is built not on greed, not at all, but on freedom and human nature. It's free, it's thoughtful, it's Hillsdale. Right now, go to gruberforhillsdale.com. gruberforhillsdale.com to enroll. There's no cost, easy to get started. gruberforhillsdale.com to register for free. All right, don't forget to go take the poll right now up on X. We've got about 7,500 votes. I'll give you an update on what the voting looks like after the top of the hour here. But please follow me on X if you have not. We're looking for 25 new followers today on X, right? There it is. Steve Gruber Show, right? That's the Steve Gruber Show. And once you register, vote. Tell me, do you approve of Donald Trump in his first 100 days? He'll be in Michigan, Macomb County tomorrow. I'll be there with him covering it for you. And remember, you can follow us and watch live on YouTube, on X, on Truth Social, all the best places. I'll take a break and have more in a few minutes. It is the Steve Gruber Show.